Dream of the Red Chamber, Chapter 17.
Talk about emotional whiplash. We're coming directly from this period of intense sorrow.
Right. Baoyu is deeply mourning the death of his close friend Qinzong.
But you can't just stop the world for grief, especially not in a family like this. And bam, this huge multi-year engineering project is suddenly finished. That's it. The Grand View Garden, the Daguanyuan, is complete. We're looking at the massive artistic and political problem facing the patriarch, Jiazhang. The imperial consort, his own daughter, Yuan Fei, is scheduled for a visit, and he has to come up with names for every single pavilion, bridge, and scenic view before she gets there.
So what's the actual dilemma here? I mean, shouldn't she be the one to name everything?
Well, logically, yes, that would be the proper thing to do. But Jia Zheng points out that if they wait for her, the whole garden, this masterpiece, will feel, and this is a quote, lonely and uninteresting.
Huh. So even with all the flowers and amazing architecture, without the words, it's just empty.
Exactly. It's like an art gallery with no labels. So the guests around him propose a temporary fix. Okay, they'll draft some provisional names, 2, 3, 4 characters, just something that vaguely fits the meaning of the place. These will just be temporary plaques until the consort makes the final call.
And this is where it gets interesting because Jia Zheng's reaction is, well, it's a bit of a performance, isn't it?
Oh, a total performance. He claims he's too rusty, too bogged down with his official duties. He says his own poetry would just be pedantic and old-fashioned. He's playing humble.
But it's not humility at all. It's an opening. He's heard that his son, Baoyu, the one who hates formal studying, actually specializes in couplets.
Yes, that he possesses this crooked talent. It's a fantastic phrase. He has this raw, unorthodox ability, and Jia Zheng has decided right here and now to put it to the test.
So this whole tour of the garden is basically a high-stakes pop quiz for Baoyu.
Absolutely. The pressure is immense. He's performing in front of his very critical father, and the whole thing is for an imperial visit.
All right, so the test begins. Jia Zheng has the main gate closed, to make it all official. And right away, we get a lesson in aesthetics.
We do. The entrance has 5 big bays, but it's completely unadorned, no flashy red paint. The walls are these water-polished stones with these really subtle carvings.
The text says it's all to avoid rich and vulgar tastes, so they're showing off their status through restraint.
Exactly. And the landscape design does the same thing. As soon as you walk in, your view is blocked by this huge green rock formation, a screen of jade green.
You can't see everything at once. Jia Zheng literally says, what interest would there be if you could? It's all about the reveal.
And then the path itself. It's this tiny winding trail called a sheep intestine path.
What a great description.
Isn't it? It weaves through these huge moss-covered white rocks that are shaped to look like, ghosts or beasts. It's all very dramatic.
Okay, so that brings us to the first challenge. There's a blank stone plaque on this rock formation. It needs a name.
And the guests, who are all scholars, they start offering up suggestions. Things like layered jade or brocade barrier.
They sound fine, pretty standard.
They're totally safe, predictable even. And Baoyu, who we know disguises anything predictable, steps up. But he does something really clever.
He doesn't try to be wild and creative.
No, just the opposite. He gets conservative. He says, inventing new is not as good as narrating the old. Carving the antique always wins over carving the present.
Wow. So he's arguing for tradition. That's a brilliant move to impress his father. It's a perfect tactical play. He proposes a title straight from a famous old poem. A winding path leads to a quiet, secluded place. It's perfect. It describes the scene and it has that classical weight. And the guests, of course, they love it. But what about Jia Zheng?
Jia Zheng just gives a little smile, and then he sort of dismisses it, saying Baoyu is just showing off the one thing he knows how to do. He can't bring himself to give a real compliment.
Classic. But that little smile says it all, doesn't it? He's impressed.
He is. He has to be. Baoyu didn't just come up with a nice phrase. He understood the strategic value of using a classical reference.
Okay, let's move on with them. They go through a cave and the whole landscape just opens up.
Yeah, it's a total change. Suddenly there are lush trees, a wide, clear stream, and these amazing 2-story towers hidden in the hills.
And the focus here is a pavilion built right over the water with these cool stone bridges next to it. And those bridges have these carved beast heads that are designed to spit water. So this is the second challenge. Name the waterside pavilion. The guests try again, right? They suggest a name from another famous classical text.
They do Yiran. But Jia Zheng himself steps in this time. He says, no, the name has to be about the water, since the pavilion is built right over it. He suggests using the character Z, which means to pour or spill.
Okay, so a guest suggests you, spilling jade. That sounds pretty elegant.
It does, but this is where Baoyu shows he's on another level. He objects strongly.
Why? What's wrong with spilling jade?
He argues that the word spill is just too crude, too violent. He says, for a place built for the imperial consort, for something that has to meet that imperial standard, you need a word that's more understated and subtle.
So spilling is too aggressive for an empress's garden.
Exactly. It suggests a lack of control. Imperial taste is all about refinement, elegance, control. So Baoyu suggests replacing spilling jade with jinfeng.
Kinfeng. And kin means what?
It means to seep or to permeate. So the title becomes fragrant seeping.
Whoa. That is a massive shift. It goes from water crashing down to a scent slowly spreading across the water.
It's an incredible change in tone. It's all about subtlety. And then he offers up the couplet to go with it, about willows borrowing greenness and flowers sharing their fragrance across the water.
And Jia Zheng's reaction.
The text says he just nods thoughtfully. No words, but it's clear approval. He sees that his son understands the aesthetic rules of the court better than any of the older scholars.
He's winning by playing their game better than they can. Which takes us to the third and final test, where the politics become, well, unavoidable.
Yes. The scene changes again. Now they're in a quiet, simple place. Just thousands of green bamboo canes. The buildings are small and clean. It's a scholar's retreat.
And the water feature here is so different. It's this tiny little stream, just a foot wide, that's been engineered to flow through the room, around the steps, and under the bamboo.
It's the complete opposite of the last scene. And this place, it really gets to Jia Zheng. He has this rare moment of genuine emotion.
Right. He says that just sitting here reading by moonlight would make a person's life worthwhile.
And then he looks right at Baoyu, who just ducks his head in fear.
That's such a powerful moment. Jia Zheng is showing his son the life he wants for him, this life of quiet study. But Baoyu knows it's impossible. It is. And that tension hangs over this third challenge, naming the bamboo retreat. The guests offer up more classical, scholarly names, and Jia Zheng just shoots them all down as vulgar.
He's looking for something sublime. And this is when Baoyu makes his final, most brilliant move. He drops the whole pretense of being a pure artist.
He gets political?
He gets completely political. He points out that this will be the first place the consort visits. Therefore, the name must offer praise to her and the emperor. He says all the classical stuff is just too stiff and dull for an imperial arrival.
He's saying the function of the building as a political stage is more important than its aesthetic feel.
Precisely. So he proposes the name Yu Feng Lai Yi. A phoenix comes to display its virtue.
The phoenix being the symbol for the empress. It's perfect.
It's the perfect political answer. The guests are just flooded with relief. But Jia Zheng, he explodes.
He calls him a beast. He accuses him of having a narrow view. But then he accepts the name. What is going on there?
It's so complex. I think he hates that his son sees the ugly political reality of their situation so clearly. Jia Zheng wants to live in a world of pure poetry, but he knows he can't. Baoyu just held up a mirror to that hypocrisy.
So he's really yelling at himself, but taking it out on his son.
That's how I see it. He scolds him for being a good politician, basically. And even after Baoyu offers another beautiful, quiet couplet about tea and chess, Jia Zheng's final word is just to dismiss it as not particularly good.
Wow. So the test is over. Baoyu passed with flying colors, but the tension is just left hanging there.
It is. The naming is done, but the relationship is as fraught as ever. The sources give us this just jaw-dropping inventory list that shows you the scale of the money involved.
It's unbelievable.
It immediately shows that this whole performance of, humble living is bankrolled by extraordinary resources. So the manager, Jia Lian, he reports on the textiles, just the textiles. They need 120 sets of these huge official curtains, including ones described as embroidered pythons and carved silk. I mean, this is state-level luxury.
But that luxury is kind of hidden under this guise of being rustic. So alongside the fancy silk, they list 800 exotic reed and bamboo curtains. And we're not talking simple reeds from the river here. The text says, crimson lacquer bamboo and gold thread rattan.
And that's just for the windows. If you need a cover for a table or a chair or a bed in one of the dozens of buildings, you're going to need 1,200 pieces.
Of each.
Of each.
Yeah.
It just drives home the point that this is not some humble little dwelling. This is a monumental, staggering effort to stage a picture-perfect classical world. Which begs the question, if the goal is simple rustic beauty, why not just, not order 1,200 chair covers?
That is the tension. The performance of restraint is clearly more important than actual restraint. Okay, so let's get into the tour and see how the aesthetics actually hold up.
So the first stop is absolutely crucial because it sets up this primary tension, the illusion of the farmstead.
They arrive at this deliberately constructed agricultural scene. Jia Zheng even says it was designed specifically to evoke in him the feeling of agriculture. And visually, it's flawless. You've got these low yellow mud walls covered in rice stalks, hundreds of apricot trees blooming like steaming mist and spraying fire, and fences woven from mulberry and elm branches.
They even have the functional details right. There's a simple well with a hoist and a windlass. And the scholarly critique, it immediately zeroes in on authenticity. The guests praise the use of a stone tablet for the inscription over, say, a hanging claque.
Why? What's the difference?
Because the stone tablet fits the specific farmhouse style they're trying to stage. A wooden plaque would be too refined.
The atmosphere is almost too perfect. Jia Zheng, trying to get that final note of rusticity, suggests adding a simple wine banner on a bamboo pole. But then the naming competition starts, and the rigidity of classical convention just comes roaring back.
The obvious suggestion, the easy one, is Apricot Blossom Village. It's charming, but Jia Zheng just shoots it down. He says it offends the rule of naming correctly.
Wait, naming correctly? What does that even mean? How is that a philosophical offense?
Well, it's rooted in this Confucian doctrine, the principle of Zhengming, or the rectification of names. In classical art, the name can't just describe the object. It has to align with a specific, sophisticated illusion from high poetry. A simple literal name like Apricot Blossom Village is, it's too prosaic. It lacks that necessary literary polish.
So it needs to be suggestive, not just descriptive. And this is where young Baoyu, without being asked, just jumps in. He suggests a name from an older poem, In the Sight of Apricot Curtains.
Exactly. It's elusive, it's metaphorical, and everyone immediately praises it for meeting that high standard. Then he follows it up. He quotes a line, "The fragrance of rice flowers by the Watergate," and suggests the name Village of Rice Fragrance. And again, the crowd just loves it.
But the system demands conformity, not genius.
Fair.
So we get this immediate brutal reversal. Jia Zheng just unleashes on his son. He says, "Ignorant beast, how dare you show off in front of the elders? You were only tested to see if you were good or bad, and you took it seriously."
It's a perfect capture of that kind of tyrannical authority. The scholars might praise your cleverness, but the father has to punish the independents. Merit is okay, but only until it threatens the hierarchy.
That abuse of power is so jarring. But Baoyu, he survives the poetry contest only to be forced into an even deeper philosophical battle when they move on to the architecture.
They step inside the main building of the farmstead. It's a simple thatched hall with paper windows and wooden beds, all designed to strip away any hint of the family's true, wealthy appearance.
And when Jia Zheng asks for his opinion, Baoyu just ignores all the praise from the guests and delivers this stunning insult. He says the area is far inferior to auspicious Phoenix coming to rest, which of course is the most opulent, richly decorated part of the whole estate.
And Jia Zheng is, predictably, furious. He accuses Baoyu of being shallow, of only being able to appreciate rich and beautiful things. But this is where Baoyu makes his intellectual masterstroke. He asks a simple question. What exactly is the meaning of natural?
The guests give the standard dictionary definition. Natural is what exists by nature, not by man's power.
And Baoyu counters with this profound aesthetic critique. He isn't just criticizing the decor, he is attacking the entire philosophical premise of the project. He says this whole constructed farmstead is fundamentally manpower chiseled and twisted.
Wait, so he's challenging the actual logic of the landscape design?
Precisely. He points out that true nature has continuity. This site, he says, has no continuous mountain range, no source for the water. It's just too isolated. He argues that true classical natural pictures are ruined the moment you force a place to be a place. He's basically calling out the intellectual dishonesty of the whole simulation.
That's a huge intellectual leap. He's not just critiquing a building, he's attacking the core philosophy of his father's entire project. No wonder Jia Zheng just loses control.
Exactly. That level of philosophical honesty is an existential threat to an authority that's built on pretense. Jia Zheng flies into a rage, orders his son out, and then immediately calls him back. Demands a couplet on the spot, under threat of violence. That sudden whiplash perfectly captures the arbitrary nature of his control.
And the couplet Baoyu provides, "New tides add green to the washing raids, good clouds protect the fragrant celery pickers," is immediately rejected by his father as even worse. The price of insight is just swift and painful.
So they move on. The sources really emphasize the journey itself, not just the destinations. They follow this long, winding path, which is strategically designed to, maximize the sense of discovery.
And they pass this incredible sequence of specific flowers: the tuberose trellis, the sweet osmanthus arbor, the peony pavilion, a peonia plot, and then a rose courtyard. The garden is laid out to be a series of distinct sensory experiences.
And this path leads them to the next highlight. They hear the sound of gurgling water flowing from a stone cave. The entrance is covered with vines, and the water is filled with floating blossoms. It's pure sensory immersion.
So time for another naming competition. What do the conventional scholars suggest this time?
Peach Blossom Spring, the most classical, most obvious reference in Chinese literature to a hidden paradise.
And it gets rejected.
Yep. Rejected again by Jia Zhang for being hackneyed and too literal. He's desperately trying to find uniqueness within convention. Baoyu offers his alternative, Liao Ting Hua Shu, which means something like smartweed bank, flowery stream, again, descriptive, specific, literary.
And here we get that peek behind the curtain again. They're all discussing the scene as if it's finished, but the source tells us they can't actually go into the water because the lotus-picking boats and the pleasure boat are not yet completed.
The vision is ahead of the construction. Following that, they reach the Hall of Exotic Herbs. Architecturally, this spot is fascinating. It's a cool, tiled house with plain brick walls, but it's hidden behind this immense, sky-piercing, ornate rock.
And the unique thing here is the plants. There are no showy cultivated flowers, just these strange, fragrant herbs and vines. And this is where Baoyu gets to deploy his specialist knowledge.
Jia Zhang is forced to admit he doesn't recognize the plants, which opens the door for Baoyu's third big moment. He starts identifying these rare herbs, specifically referencing foundational classical texts like the Li Sao and the Wen Xuan.
He identifies Duruo, Hongwu, and Qilon. These aren't just random herbs, are they? They carry a lot of cultural weight.
They absolutely do. This is a brilliant synthesis of botany and literary history. These herbs angelica, asarum, fragrant iris are classical metaphors for integrity, purity, and virtue. By naming them, Baoyu is showing mastery over the very literary tradition Jia Zhang claims to defend. He even gives an academic explanation for why the old names are often lost.
He's showing historical, scientific, and literary depth all in one go. He's proving he's the intellectual master of the garden's own philosophy.
And that, of course, has to be crushed. Despite this brilliant display, his father just shouts him down with the same phrase, "Who asked you?" Merit is ignored when it comes from the wrong person.
So they move quickly to the final stop, a structure praised for its clean and elegant atmosphere. 5 simple halls connected by walkways. This is the moment for the official plaque and couplet.
The plaque name they accept is simple and elegant, Orchid Wind and Sweet Dew. But the couplet process is still hypercritical. One suggestion gets rejected because it uses the phrase sloping sun, which is considered too depressing.
They're judging the emotional mood of the language itself.
Exactly. So under immense pressure, Baoyu is forced to produce the final literary entry. His plaque name is Fragrant Scents of Angelica and Asarum, and the couplet. When the cardamom ripens, the talent is still lush. Sleeping through the tuberose, the dream is also fragrant.
And Jia Zhang immediately tries to dismiss it as a cliché, saying it's copied.
But here's the critical moment of vindication. The guests, they actually intercede. They argue publicly that Baoyu's version is more graceful and lively, and maybe even better than the one he supposedly copied.
So his sophisticated taste finally wins over the literary audience, even if his father is too stubborn to admit it. It's the closest Baoyu gets to actually winning the day. You have to picture the scale of this place. I mean, the money involved must have been staggering. It was all built for the imperial consort.
Oh, for sure. The text describes lofty pavilions and layered buildings. It's all about verticality, power, things that are meant to look imposing and permanent.
And they're not just standalone buildings. They're surrounded by palaces with green pines brushing the eaves and jade railings everywhere. It screams top-tier political power.
Its status literally carved into stone.
So the tour begins, and right away you feel this tension. Jia Zhang, the man in the house, he looks at the main hall and says it's too luxurious.
Which is such a strange thing for the owner to say, right?
Well, yeah, he's worried about appearances, maybe seeming a little too flashy to his peers, but his guests jump right in.
And they basically tell him, look, this isn't about your personal taste. The imperial consort is coming. This level of opulence is required. It's protocol.
Status over preference. every time.
And this idea gets summed up perfectly in the next thing they see, this massive jade stone archway at the entrance. The carvings are described as incredibly intricate, with dragons and serpents.
This isn't just a gate, it's a statement.
A permanent imperial-level statement. And that brings us to the first big test. What do you call this place?
The guests offer up a name, Penglai Fairyland, which
Well,
sounds,
a little generic, a little cliche. Jie Zheng just silently dismisses it. He doesn't even bother to comment.
But this is where Baoyu is supposed to shine, right? He's supposed to be composing all these brilliant names.
And he completely fails. He's not even paying attention.
He's just staring at the archway. He's hit with this overwhelming feeling of déjà vu. He's convinced he's been here before, but he can't place the memory.
Exactly. While everyone else is focused on the external task, the naming, he's lost in this internal spiritual moment. He's trying to connect with the soul of the place.
And for having that artistic sensibility, he gets punished brutally.
Jie Zheng's reaction is just ice cold. He laughs at him and calls him a chu sheng.
Can you break that down for us? I mean, we translate it as beast or scoundrel, but that feels like it doesn't quite capture the weight of it.
It's an absolute annihilation of his identity.
Mm-hmm.
In a Confucian society, where your role as an educated, pious son is everything, being called a chu sheng reduces you to an animal. It strips you of your humanity.
Wow, so this isn't just an insult, it's a social execution almost. And his father gives him one day to come up with a name for this one spot.
The pressure is immense. And remember, they've barely started the tour. The text says they've only seen 5 or 6 tenths of the garden.
That's a great point about the pacing. They're in such a hurry, they just blow past all these other beautiful, quieter spots.
Thatched cottages, stone walls. None of it matters. The tour isn't about appreciation. It's a bureaucratic inspection. They're just ticking boxes.
So they keep moving, following the water, and they arrive at this big gate where the water rushes in, the source for the whole garden.
Right. The text calls it a crystal curtain. It's obviously a key piece of engineering.
So time for naming crisis number 2.
And Baoyu steps up with a name that is perfectly logical. Qinfang Gate.
Because it's the gate for the Qinfang Spring that feeds everything else. It's simple, it's accurate.
It's based in reality. And what does Jie Zheng say?
He calls it anermanence, and he specifically forbids him from ever using the characters Qinfang.
So why? Why is the logical, correct name so wrong in his father's eyes?
Well, I think it's because it's too obvious, it's too functional. An aristocrat can't just call a gate a water gate. It lacks poetry.
Or at least it lacks the veneer of poetry. Jie Zheng wants something that sounds lofty and abstract, even if it has no real connection to what the thing actually is.
It's perception over truth. The name has to sound like a grand poem, even a bad one.
Precisely. And Baoyu's attempt to ground everything in an authentic artistic reality is just. It's destined to fail against that mindset.
But he doesn't give up. The next stop is a courtyard, and this is where he really gets to show his deep literary insight.
Yeah, they finally slow down a bit. You enter through this beautiful circular moon gate, and inside there's this incredible visual contrast.
You have these huge, lush, green banana trees, but right in the middle there's a single spectacular West Mansion crabapple tree.
And the description is so poetic. Hanging green threads, flowers spitting red powder. The color combination, that deep green and vibrant red, is clearly intentional.
Everyone is captivated. And Jie Zheng mentions the flower's common name, daughter tangerine. He says there's a myth that comes from the daughter kingdom, but he dismisses it as absurd.
He's the pragmatist, right? It's just a silly folktale to him.
But for Baoyu, this is his moment. He jumps in, not to defend the myth, but to explain where the idea came from.
He connects it back to the poets and scholars. He explains how they compared the flower's red blush to a lady applying makeup and its delicate look to a noblewoman in her private rooms.
That's the key part, isn't it? It's not just that it looks feminine. It's about a very specific kind of sheltered boudoir elegance.
Exactly. He's basically giving them a master class in literary etymology. He explains that this sophisticated metaphor eventually got dumbed down through common retelling.
Until the subtle poetry was lost and replaced by a crude myth about a magical kingdom.
The guests love it. They praise his intellect. But, being smart doesn't mean you get to make the final decision.
Which brings us, of course, to naming crisis number 3. What do we call this courtyard?
The guests throw out a few options. Banana crane is one. The other is radiant light casting splendor.
And Jie Zheng and the others immediately latch on to radiant light.
Of course they do. It sounds grand, formal, and abstract.
Yeah.
It reflects the glory of the family. It's perfect for the occasion.
But Baoyu just can't let it go. He says the name is a pity.
And here's his core argument. He says the whole point of this spot is the combination of the green banana leaves and the red crabapple flowers. Red and green are the fundamental colors of life.
He sees it as this aesthetic ecosystem. To name it just for some generic light is to completely miss the artist's intent.
And he has that amazing line, having the crabapple without the banana is no good. Having the banana without the crabapple is worse. It's about balance, unity.
He's seeing the deep structure, the philosophy behind the design, and he offers his own name, Fragrant Red, Jade Green.
Which is perfect. It's concise, it's evocative, it captures both plants, the colors, the whole concept.
So what does his father say to this moment of artistic and intellectual perfection?
Bad, bad. Just like that.
Ugh, the hammer comes down again.
It doesn't matter how right Baoyu is. His suggestion challenges his father's authority, so it has to be rejected. The official name becomes Radiant Light.
So after all that drama, the focus shifts, and we get a look at the inside of this building, and it's an architectural marvel, a puzzle box.
It really is. The whole interior is designed to disorient you in the most luxurious way possible. There are no solid walls.
Instead, they have these incredibly detailed, carved wooden screens separating the spaces, with patterns like flowing clouds and hundreds of bats, just pure artistry.
And the details are insane. They have these custom-carved recesses in the walls to hold things. A lute, a sword, a vase. The objects sit perfectly flush like they're part of the wall itself.
It's an optical illusion, and all the display nooks are different shapes, round, square, like a sunflower, so your eye can never find a pattern. It's beautiful chaos.
And it works. The guests get completely lost. They can't find their way back.
Their own wealth has created this beautiful maze that they're now trapped in.
And then comes the ultimate trick. They turn a corner, and they suddenly see another group of people identical to themselves.
For a second, you can imagine they must have thought they'd seen ghosts.
But it's just a huge, expensive glass mirror, perfectly placed to confuse them. It's like the world's fanciest escape room.
Jiazhen, the guide, has to lead them out through, 2 layers of silk partitions to finally find the exit.
The deception doesn't even stop there. Outside, we learn about the hidden engineering of the water system. It's this complex circulatory system that's completely invisible.
The stream is diverted through a cave, split to go to a village, split again to go somewhere else, and then it all rejoins before it leaves the property.
The guests are just amazed by it. It's the kind of invisible mastery that only unlimited money can buy.
And there's one last trick. As they're about to leave, a huge artificial mountain blocks the path. But they just follow a little trail around the base, and suddenly they're out on a wide road right by the main gate.
They've been gracefully ejected from the labyrinth.
And as they leave, you see that Baoyu is the only one who doesn't want to go. He's still mentally inside the garden thinking about the poetry and the colors.
His mind is still on the red and green, the real art of the place.
And his father has to get in one last jab, of course. He scolds him for being frivolous and tells him to go think about his worried grandmother. And Jiazhen won all the arguments, right? He got his way on every single name.
He did. But Baoyu was the only one who truly understood the place. He saw the truth behind the folklore, the unity behind the design.